with my PTSD, if it ties me up, I end up just collapsing in a heap, and I can't do anything about it. And you don't know when that's going to come on. I've met a lot of veterans that have had these problems and have found themselves in trouble because of it.
Welcome to Crime Scene Gold Coast with Guardian Criminal Law. My name's Mark Savic. I'm the Principal of Guardian Criminal Law, and we'll be bringing you podcasts weekly. Variety of topics that can be very sensitive, so please be careful when you're listening, and if you need any assistance at all, we'll include a lifeline number at the bottom of the page. We really appreciate you subscribing and liking our podcast channel. You can listen to us across most social media platforms, Spotify, YouTube, TikTok, and you'll find us there. We look forward to bringing you many episodes in the future. Really nice to see you. Haven't seen you for a while.
Yeah,
how long's it been? A few months?
Yeah, a few months. We'll have to catch up for a beer soon.
Yeah. A few months ago at the Southport Yacht Club, I think was the last time. Yeah. Well, it's good to have you in, mate. And I called you in to have a discussion about the work that you do with Australian Armed Forces veterans. You do a lot of work in that space.
Yes, I do, yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your background, your history. I believe you've got naval history.
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about that and your journey into the Navy so we can get a picture of who you are.
Sure. I joined the Navy at 15 and a half.
Wow.
And
you can't do that anymore, can you?
No, you can't go in at 15 and a half anymore.
Yeah.
Well, it's what they call a junior recruit. So I meant my parents came from Sydney, that's where I was living, and as a junior recruit, you do your 12 months training in Western Australia, over in Fremantle. So it was 12 months basically away from home, but I actually loved it. I didn't get homesick, I just enjoyed the experience. Yeah. But I served over 20 years, most of that in submarines, and which I quite enjoyed. Further down the line, I became a coxswain. I changed my branches that I was in. Became a coxswain, which is naval police basically, and regulating discipline, all that sort of stuff. A submarine is a lot different to surface ship when it comes to that sort of stuff, but you wouldn't think submariners were a highly trained bunch because they're pretty well slobs, but at the end of the day, they are very highly trained and they take their job very, very seriously, but work hard, play hard.
What sort of boats were you on, mate? Is that what the current Collins class submarine?
No, I was on the Oberon class submarines, the ones prior to Collins class.
Can you tell us a bit about what that boat's like? What sort of boat
an Oberon boat is roughly 300 feet long.
Wow, that's
26 feet wide, and weighs about 2,000 odd ton.
Wow.
And they're a diesel electric submarine, so on the they run on electric motors all the time, but on the surface or at periscope depth, we can run the diesel engines as generators, two V16 diesels, and they'll run the generators, charge the batteries up. You've got 440 cells in total of batteries. Each cell weighs half a ton.
Wow.
Yeah. But just a normal wet cell type battery, but very well looked after. They're 2.2 volts per cell, but lots and lots of amps, as you can imagine, being half a ton and almost as tall as I am. So they sit underneath the deck inside the boat, and they have a little agitator goes through a little 1.5 pound blow, and that stops any sediment forming in the battery. So they're very, very well looked after, and they're discharged and charged quite regularly. Yeah.
How long can that boat go to sea for?
Basically, even on an O-class submarine, we were limited by the human factor more than anything, or more so in the sense of victuals, like how many victuals can you take to sea to feed 70 odd blokes. But an O-boat can stay dive, depending how much power it's using, can stay dive for quite some time. I can't say exactly how long, but if we're using power underwater, normally we'll cruise on a patrol area at about 3 knots. So we could probably last a couple of days before we need to charge. It would go off the patrol area and put the snorkel up and still remain under the water, and start the generators up, which would also refresh the boat with fresh air.
Okay, and you said then you went into policing.
Yes.
In the Navy. So what does that look like? Were you stationed aboard a vessel and you were in charge of administration of the rules and regulations on that vessel, or
yes.
were you land-based?
A bit of both. You do shore stuff as well, but the coxswain has many duties on board a boat. He's in charge of the watch bill and making the watch bill, but also the regulating, discipline, master helmsman, all that sort of side of it. So when the boat's closed up at action stations, it'll be the coxswain that's on the helm, and you're responsible for the regulating, the discipline side of the crew, and keep the morale up, report to the captain about the morale, etc. And if somebody's in trouble for a leave offence or whatever, then you're basically the prosecutor that takes him to the table, to the captain's table.
What sort of offences did you have to deal with?
Oh, it could be anything from drunk and disorderly, which was reasonably common, although in submarines you turn a blind eye. Leave offences like not be late for work or go AWOL or, miss the ship because they've been out having a night out somewhere in a port and don't make it when we're due to sail, and then that creates a lot of problems. It could be any sort of disciplinary offence. Could be theft, although in submarines we didn't have any problems with people being thieves. You're too close-knit a community, and it's, if somebody was the thief, they'd be dealt with before they even got to me. So that'd be sort of
in-house.
In-house discipline. Yes.
Okay, and so when you were in there for 20 years?
Yes. Yeah.
And then you've come out, and I know that you do a lot of work with veterans. You've got your beautiful boat, Mystic.
Yes.
And you take veterans out on cruises, and you're very active in supporting veterans, particularly who have mental health issues. Tell us about some of those, how you got into that side of work and what that journey's been like. And tell us a bit about your dog, Bundy, who helped you raise a lot of money for this cause.
Well, as you can imagine, Mark, when I left the Navy after 20 years, I was a lost soul. And I started learning to fly just before I got out, and I'd done my commercial pilot's licence, and I didn't realise back then I paid off in 1992. So for me, I didn't know what PTSD was. Nobody knew what PTSD was. It wasn't even a name then, wasn't a thing. It's shell shock, whatever. But I got out, I was a lost soul. And I can remember I moved up to the coast to Sandy Beach up near Coffs Harbour. Yeah. Lived with a mate of mine and his wife and stuff. And I was still pretty fit then, and I was out training, and I'm running down the beach a couple of days after I arrived there. I'd seen a couple of surfies on the side of the beach there, long hair and stuff, and I had to restrain myself from going to say, you get a haircut and report to me by 0800 tomorrow morning. But it took me a while to get back into Civvy Street and get used to things. And then I was single then. I'd been married and divorced, and I had a few women say to me, Tex, you need to get some help. And I wasn't violent. I was just lost soul. And
what did that look like, mate?
Anxiety, depression.
Okay.
And then I was getting all these nightmares and of my service life, things that happen in submarines that I can't talk about. Like I served a lot in the Cold War. A lot of people don't understand, but the Cold War went hot a few times. No one will ever admit that. The government certainly won't admit it. We're on patrol in off the coast of certain countries. That's what submarines do. They're covert operations, and we were checking out what the enemy had. If we got caught where we were, then we wouldn't be here today. And that was common knowledge. The government would say we're lost at sea, don't know what happened to it. It's just one of those things. And we all knew the risk. As a coxswain, you're part of the top 11 basically in the control room. You know what's going on and everything else. So it can be quite stressful. And a couple of times we were discovered, not knowing that we're an Australian submarine, but that we were a submarine belonging to somebody.
Yeah.
And they were trying to get us to come to the surface, and we know if we come to the surface, it's all over. So no, we got away, but we're very lucky. And those sort of things play on your mind. Plus, a couple of episodes in submarines where you go to surface, something goes wrong, can't get back to the surface straight away. And in submarines, it's one in, all in. So, if you don't make it to the surface, we all die. So,
yeah.
Fortunately, all my services equaled all the amount of dives I've done. So
there's been a few disasters. Wasn't there an Indonesian one fairly recently, mate?
Yes, a couple of years ago now. But I don't know what the exact problem with that one was, but they all perished.
And there was a Russian one, quite a famous Russian one, many years ago.
Yes, the same with that. Now, those submariners could have been saved.
That's right.
If it wasn't for the differences between the US and Russia, etc. Now, the US has a rescue vessel that can attach itself to what we call a deep submergence rescue vessel, and attaches itself to a ring that's on the submarine escape hatch or around the submarine escape hatch. And that's been tested, I forget now, probably about 600 feet. Submarines aren't a deep diving vessel, like they'll go to 1,000 feet or so. I mean, you can go and buy a recreational submarine that'll go much, much deeper.
Okay.
But that's not where things are fought. The whole point of a submarine is to remain underwater and unseen, and be quiet. And so the depth is not the matter. Like 1,000 feet, 1,200 feet's heaps,
Yeah.
So, and I mean, 600 feet is 300 pounds per square inch on the hull, It's a lot of, something goes wrong, you're going to stay on the bottom quick.
And what, that Russian submarine was within that, was it?
No, I think it was, I can't remember the depth. I think it might have been around 1,000 feet or more, but they could have been saved at the time. Everyone thought that anyway, if the DSRV had been dispatched to get to them. And the Americans can get their DSRV, their deep submergence rescue vessel, anywhere in the world inside 24 hours. So,
wow.
Yeah, it's just one of those things,
And what, Russia refused the assistance?
Yeah, they had things on board that they didn't want the Americans to know about. And,
Okay.
Look, every country's got something to hide.
Yeah.
There's a lot of average civilian wouldn't be aware of what's going on. And off the coast of our country now, in any given spot, could be half a dozen submarines that don't belong to us that are cruising our coast.
And that's from all sorts of different nations.
Yes, certainly. Now, especially with China ramping up and Indonesia. Indonesia used to be our biggest threat. I think now probably China. But and they've all advanced. The Indonesians were using old style Russian submarines, but they're starting to get more advanced. And same with China. And China's got the numbers. I don't think at this point they've got the expertise of the Western navies, but they've certainly got the numbers. And and they've got plenty of money. Like we've got 6 submarines, and we have trouble crewing the whole 6. So and I don't know how they're going to go when they get nuclear submarines. They'll never be able to crew them all. But in the Chinese and Indonesian Navy, they tell them, you're not a volunteer, you're going into submarines, and they're conscripted. But I can assure you, in 2 years or whatever their conscription rate is, you learn nothing. A submarine is something you learn over a lifetime, over many years. And the Americans, the Australians, the Pommies, the Netherlands Navy, they're very, very good. Our training is second to none. So, and the submarine's a very formidable weapon. So,
okay. And what do you think about these new nuclear submarines that have been ordered? Do you think that's a wise decision?
I think having nuclear submarines is a wise decision in Australia because they're fast underwater. They probably do in excess of 30 knots underwater, and they can get somewhere quickly. But it's finding a cruise, and we should have done this years ago. When they got the Collins class submarines, they ordered those. They should have ordered at least 1 or 2 nuclear submarines, trained crews up on those, and we would have been in a ready state now to take half a dozen nuclear submarines. But the problem they're going to have now, trying to cruise 6 submarines, nuclear submarines that'll take more than probably 70 crew, probably big crews, probably 100 or so, depending on the size of the submarine and what its setup is. But when they do that, I mean, who wants to join the forces now with the way things are going? And who certainly wants to go to war in a submarine? Like, the general population now is a lot different to what you and I grew up in. And the whole Navy, the whole Defence Force is a different persona to what it was.
But socially, we're different. Technologically, we're different. There's a whole range of differences.
And now they've got women on submarines. I don't have a problem with that, but it does create its own set of dramas. The Collins class is set up for it. Certainly an O-boat wasn't. So we didn't have women at sea on O-class submarines. But, and there's some women out there that are very, very good submariners. But I still think it presents a problem in some, especially in a war state. I mean, it's a bloke's natural ability to want to protect a female. And I could see that possibly being an issue. Having said that, it seems to be working okay now in Collins-class submarines. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So going back, you were talking about walking down the beach and seeing the two long-haired fellas and thinking they needed a little bit of discipline. And this is at a stage where you're having some depression and some friends had indicated to you that getting some help might be a good idea. So what happened then?
Well, as I said, I was a lost soul for a long time. Then I got into flying, and that sort of took a bit off my mind, and I wasn't thinking about it as much because I was doing these outback tours, and being an ex-submariner with a bit of a sense of humour, I was doing outback pub crawls by aeroplane. And
what, you were taking people on these?
Taking to people the most remotest pubs in Australia.
Okay, yeah.
And then they could have a really good time in all these country pubs. And I got to know a lot of the publicans around Australia and all these remote pubs, and they all knew we were coming. And we'd make it a fun trip, a really good fun trip. And the next day, if we were flying out, if I was hungover, oh, look, we've got a problem with the aeroplane, we can't fly today. But if they were hungover, it was get in. But they were good days. But moving on from that, I then got into, I had a cattle dog in Cooma. I was on the tools for a while as a mechanic running workshops, automotive and motorcycle workshops. And then I needed a break, and I got an offer to manage a 1,000-acre property in Cooma. So I went down there and I bought myself a cattle dog. I think I paid $30, and it was a dog called Cash that I called Cash. And Cash started to ride on my bike. He was just one of those dogs, personality plus. Unfortunately, got killed in a car accident many years later, 5 or 6 years later. I'd done a couple of 100,000 Ks on my bike with him. In those days, there was no law about having animals on your motorbike. These days, Rule 297 Australian Road Rules states no animals between the rider and the handlebars. When Cash was killed, 12 months or so later, everyone said, "You've got to get another dog, Tex." I said, "No, I'm over it." They said, "No, you got to do it. You're doing good work with PTSD and stuff with veterans and my charity work with Prostate Cancer Foundation and stuff." So I done the search, started the search to look for another dog. It had to be the right dog. And I looked at over 200 dogs in 12 months. And Bundy come along, a mate of mine rang me up and he said, "This is in the days of the old trading post."
Yeah, I remember.
Mate said, "There's a woman in the trading post advertising cattle dogs up the back of Mudgee." And so give me a number. And I rang this lady up. And I was talking for about 10 minutes. And she said, "What are you going to do with the dog?" And I'm thinking, "Oh, here we go." And I said, "Well, I want a dog that I can take on my bike." And she said, "Did you have a dog called Cash?" And I said, "Yes, I did." And she said,
"Okay,
my granddaughter suffered from spina bifida and you took her for a ride around Westmead Children's Hospital car park." She said, "I'll never ever forgot it." She said, "If you want one of my dogs, you got pick of the litter." So the next day, I rode up to Mudgee and met these dogs. I only just 5 weeks old. And this one particular dog kept coming to me. It was a bitch. And I thought, that's the dog I want. And she said, Tex, she said, "I'm glad you chose that one because that's the one I would have chose for you."
Okay.
And that started what is well known now as Tex and Bundy. And Bundy ended up in her 15 years and 4 months that she was on this earth. She done over 1 million kilometres on the bike, raised in excess of $6 million in 12 years. In 12 years that we're on the bike, I had to retire after that because her back was playing up. And she became well known all over the world. And she was the only dog in Australia with a ministerial declaration to ride on the front of a motorbike.
Wow.
When they brought that Rule 297 in, I fought that. And I got booked coming back from a Prostate Cancer Foundation ride, raising money for them. And this copper was harsh as, and no sense of humour. So I thought I'll take it further. Anyway, the media heard about it. That was on a Saturday. On the Monday, I was on Sunrise. Sunrise got their investigative reporters onto it. The roads minister didn't want to be seen to be whatever. And he turned and said, "I'm sure I can come up with an exemption." And the guy who was head of the RTO at the time, or third tier of the RTO, I won't mention his name, he said, "No way in the world that guy's going to be riding around on his bike." And he said, "Well, we've got to." And to try and get out of it, they got in touch with the RSPCA, hoping the RSPCA would veto it. Well, it turned out what they didn't know was the two guys running the RSPCA at the time were Harley riders, and one of the girls who worked for him as an inspector was my next door neighbour who also rode a bike. And they asked her about it, and she said, "That dog's safer on the bike than in the back of the ute." There's a little miles. And I might admit, in over the 1 million kilometres we've done with Bundy, 100% nil incidents. Never come off, never had a problem. Several bikes we rode. And anyway, they couldn't back down then when they got that letter back from the RSPCA. And we got told, oh yeah, you're going to get your exemption, but don't, we had a bit of gump on the people involved at the time, and we weren't allowed to talk about it. And I thought, all this over a cattle dog that just wants to ride on a motorbike and raise money for charity. Yeah. And I started to see the dirty side of politics then.
Okay.
And anyway, the guy who was the PA at the time, who said all this to us, only a couple of weeks later got busted buying drugs in Balmain. Like, I thought, well, like, we're not the crims here.
Yeah.
We're trying to do the right thing. But anyway, Bundy became well known, and she was also trained up as my assistance dog. And that's when I found out I had PTSD prior to that, and the dog really comforted me. Cash was good at comforting me. I made some more inquiries, went and seen doctors. Yeah, you've got severe PTSD, and that's the way it was. So I ended up becoming a TPI, totally and permanently incapacitated, with on a military pension. Wasn't allowed to work. I couldn't work. I was in a bad way. And but my dog was my comfort. And getting on the road, on the bike, out in the open, just me and the dog, was the best thing ever for me.
Yeah.
So, and that's what we did. So we rode all around Australia doing all sorts of charity work, talking on men's health, particularly mental health, and prostate cancer. I don't have prostate. I have prostate problems. I don't have prostate cancer, but certainly trying to get the word across how important it is to go to a doctor. And the good thing about that was, you'd be talking in a country town, and you might not go back there for another 18 months or so, and have another talk, and having people, and it's happened a couple of times where blokes have come up to me and said, I'm a country bloke, never bothered to go and see a doctor. Said, I've come and heard you talk, I wanted to see what it was all about. Listened to it, I thought maybe I should go and get checked up. And said, if I hadn't, I wouldn't be alive today.
Yeah.
So that was a really good boost to what we done. And the same with veteran suicide. Like, talk to blokes about PTSD, because I've got PTSD and I'm a veteran. Veterans tend to open up to other veterans. And EMS, we do a lot for emergency service personnel, like first responders. We're all the same. Doesn't matter whether you're EMS or Defence Force. We've all seen horrible things and been involved in horrible things that create PTSD. So being able to talk to someone who has it, and I'm open about it. I've had a lot of blokes come up to me and say, how can you be so open and talking about it? It's because I've learnt to open up, and that's what helps me.
Yeah.
So, and that's important. And then these other blokes open up. And as Dr. Harry said when he came on board our boat last year, Anzac Day of last year, came on the boat and he said, what is it with the veterans? I said, well, I'm going to get veterans on board here, take them out in the boat. And within 15 minutes, I may have never met them before, they open up to me and tell me things that they've never told their wife or family, because they're amongst shipmates. They're amongst people who have been there, done that. And they trust us, because what happens on the boat, or what is said on the boat, stays on the boat.
I didn't think of it that way, Tex. They painted a really good picture. So it's almost like it's a confidential space.
Yes,
and you sail away from the shore, and you're in this private space that's more conducive to you opening up.
Yeah, well, it was the same on the bike. If I met someone who was, the bloke would come and say, I'm an ex-vet, and get talking, they got PTSD. The dog was a great calming effect. And on board Mystic now, we have a red healer. Yeah. And Sheila, and you've met Sheila.
Yeah, I have met Sheila.
And she's just an average cattle dog, but she's really good with people. And that's great. Veterans can sit down on a boat and they can pat the dog, and they feel relaxed at home. There's no pressure. They can help with the boat stuff if they want to, or they can sit down and just enjoy themselves. Yeah. And there's nothing, as you know yourself, there's nothing more relaxing than being on a boat at sea.
Yeah, it can be the other way around too, mate. I remember seeing you come through that Ballina bar. That wasn't relaxing, mate.
No, that was quite stressful.
Tex's partner, Lucy's here. She was there too. Well, you left a bit of timber on the front deck, come straight through the windscreen.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, wow.
That was bad. That was just one of those things. Ballina bar's probably the most vicious bar on the east coast of Australia. And it didn't appear that bad, but we had a wave form almost directly in front of us and just crashed on our deck. I watched the footage.
It just didn't seem like anything was happening, and all of a sudden, there it was.
Yep. And we'd just come off another wave, so we're a little bit bowed down.
Yeah.
And so we copped it, and I had one of my mooring planks laying on the front deck and it wasn't tied down, and the solid wave just picked it up and smashed it through the front window. We'd just come out of refit, and we copped, I don't know, probably a couple of 1,000 litres of water through the front window. The high water bilge alarm was going off. It was pretty dangerous, but we kept the boat going straight, and although I blew most of my electrics at the time, motor being a diesel and being a manual shut-off, kept going. So, because if we had been side onto that, it would have rolled us for sure.
Wow, it looked scary, man. It taught me a lesson. I'm getting ready to depart tomorrow to head north, and that's one of the things I double and triple check. Make sure that there's nothing sitting on that front deck.
Always stow for sea.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing the last few days.
Fortunately, we didn't have any vets on board other than crew, which was just another mate of mine, and obviously Lucy and the dog. Well, we had Bundy was still alive.
Yeah, Bundy was still, that's
Bundy
right.
was down in the saloon, and she literally crapped herself because she got covered in water. I didn't know what was going on, and but you know the thing is, you know yourself, Mark, and I've had this instance happen in aeroplanes as well. Don't panic, and I think my time in the Defence Force has taught me that you straight away, if something goes wrong, you go straight into that mode of, looking at the problem.
Yeah, problem solving.
And
exactly.
problem solve
Work the problem
instantly.
Yes, exactly. It's like a switch that flicks,
yes,
and you just go straight into problem solving mode.
Yeah.
Panic will kill you so fast.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, I train my I've got 3 boys, as you know, and from a very young age, I train them all about panic, So I take them to the mouth of the river and make them swim across in strong currents and plan where their entry and exit is, understanding they're going to get swept away. And the key is to put them in a situation that tests them a little bit so that they learn to relax into it and then solve the problem.
Yep.
As soon as you panic, your energy just is gone.
It's all gone, mate, yep. And you don't have time, especially flying an aeroplane, you don't have time to panic. I've crashed a couple of airplanes, not my fault, just having engine problems or major problems with the aircraft. It's it's something you got to think about straight away. I think, right, when am I going to put this thing down?
Yeah.
And I've managed to walk away every time. So 3 instances.
Yeah.
So, and
I've had one.
Yeah.
I've had one because I'm back skydiving.
Yep.
A very intelligent decision to make at 57 this year. But my oldest boy's got back into it, so I've jumped in the plane with him. And several years ago, I had an incident with an engine out over the top of Coffs Harbour.
Yep.
And at 1,500 feet, 5 skydivers in the plane. So we can't get out at 1,500 feet. It's a bit low.
And not much time to find a place to park the plane either.
No, we managed to make it back to the runway at the airport. Just managed to get back there. But it was really frightening. And I have a friend who's had 14. He says I've had to put it down 14 times. He doesn't talk about emergencies or crashes or anything.
I'd be retiring from flying if I got that many.
I know. Yeah, but he's a pretty wild and crazy guy. Yeah. Mate, with the PTSD, we're a criminal law podcast. We're a criminal law firm, and we're interested in those sort of issues in our community. And before we started recording today, I mentioned to you that I've had a few clients now that are veterans with PTSD, and that are on full pensions and support from the armed forces. What's the body called?
DVA. Department of Veteran Affairs.
Department of Veteran Affairs. And the usual issues that we have are domestic violence issues, they're temper issues, and drug and alcohol abuse issues, all tangled up in a terrible web. And it seems to be some sort of manifestation of the PTSD, the inability to cope appropriately in a stressful situation and then losing control. Have you experienced this sort of thing as well, mate, like in the veterans you're working with? I've
experienced with other veterans. I've sort of, as I said, I don't get violent. I get, with my PTSD, if it ties me up, I end up just collapsing in a heap, and I can't do anything about it. And you don't know when that's going to come on. Fortunately, my partner has a son that's an ex-Netherlands SAS guy. He's got PTSD, and she understands it. So when we got together, she understood my triggers and tries to keep that away from me. But having said that, I've met a lot of veterans that have had these problems and have found themselves in trouble because of it. Now, it's in our time in the mob, serving, it was always a big thing to turn to drink. And
it's almost a cultural norm in the armed services, isn't it?
It's a lot of peer group pressure to be honest. Oh, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you having a drink? You know, and sort of feed it in you. It's just the thing. Young blokes, you know, bulletproof, will think they are, and that's what happens. Well, when they pay off and they get this, and they start getting attacked by PTSD or anxiety and depression, then what they're thinking is, like, how am I going to cope with this? So they turn to alcohol, and they got nobody to help them. And DVA, yes and no with DVA. DVA is trying to help in some ways. In other ways, they're hopeless. There's far too much of a backlog. They need to, and it's not the people working at DVA, they're great. It's upper management that are running DVA, and they need to be kicked up the backside really big time. And the DVA minister, Veterans Affairs Minister, he needs to sort it out. And none of them have. Like, it's just a feather in their cap, if you like. They don't care. And this Royal Commission into Veterans with suicide is a big thing. And I don't know if they're getting to the bottom of it. I've heard a few things about it. It's here and there. But the problem is alcohol fuels violence, as you know.
Yeah.
And PTSD is the trigger. And what triggers their PTSD could be anything. And it could be car backfire, and could be an argument with their wife or girlfriend or their mate or whatever. And they go home. They don't have that immediate support. Fortunately, there's a couple of good organisations out there. The RSLs are starting to see it. Mates for Mates, Soldier On, all those sort of mobs. And of course, the smaller grassroots charities like mine with the boat, taking them out in the boat and stuff, talking about them. But that's where it is. And the thing is, they don't feel like they're getting the help at that time, or they haven't found that help. And so they have this attack. They're either start smoking heaps of weed or on the alcohol, and they lose control of themselves and become violent because something's triggered them to be violent, and next you know they're in trouble. Yeah. And one case we had only recently was a fella was getting words in his head, like somebody was playing around with him, and he couldn't understand what was going on. Like, they were asking him questions, and straight away he's thinking these guys are police when they're not, and just starts to go into another, almost like being schizophrenic.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I was thinking.
And they go off, and he wasn't getting the attention in hospital. Smashed his door and smashed his finger in the door to make sure that he got seen, and then you might get someone who's not compassionate towards PTSD in the medical world, like nurses or whatever. Some don't understand it or whatever, and that will just trigger them more. And yet the other nurses who know what's going on, that they know how to handle that, and a few calming words, and it's all good.
Yeah.
But that's not always the case, unfortunately. And of course, quite often someone with these problems will hit out at the person they love the most, and that's where this domestic violence comes in. They'll bash their partner, and next you know they're in serious trouble. Their partner doesn't deserve it, but I don't think at the time they're bashing their partner they realise who they're bashing. It's just they're gone off. They're off the rails. They can't even see. There's just rage in front of them.
Yeah.
They might think it's the enemy or something like that, when it could be very well the person who's closest to them. So.
I have seen some clients in the past that have come out of the armed forces with PTSD. There's a question that I wanted to ask you, like, how does it manifest within the armed forces? So the PTSD doesn't magically appear once you leave the armed forces. If you've suffered some sort of trauma, surely there must be people that are still in the armed forces and they're suffering with PTSD while they're still serving.
The funny thing is, Mark, with PTSD is like for me, it didn't manifest when I was in the mob because I was focused on what I was doing.
Right.
And you can't be seen to be having problems because that would make you a lesser man. I know that's a silly way to look at it, but that's the way a lot of people did at the time. More and more people now, blokes and females, are opening up. But when you're in the mob, you're concentrating on your work and what you got to do. And sure, you might start getting a few flashbacks, whatever. You go to sick bay, will give you something to calm you down and you're back into it. But when you get out, when it's quiet, relaxed, and you've got time to yourself and you're not in that military mode anymore, that's when it hits you.
Right.
Like for me, it never hit me for quite a few. I mean, I had problems that I didn't even know. I didn't even know I had PTSD or what was going on with me. And then it manifested and got worse. And I thought, I've got to go and get help. And that's when I went to a psych and to medical doctors. And fortunately, I found a very good GP who actually used to be in the Navy and was served at the same submarine base I was at many years ago. And he recognised us straight away. And he dealt with veterans. So I suggest to veterans, if they're going to go to a doctor, find a doctor who actually has dealt with veterans.
Yeah. And
still wants to deal with veterans.
Yeah.
But it's a very real problem. And I don't know what the answer is, but certainly a little bit of compassion and take them away on like we do on the boat, where it gets them away from that thing and they can talk about it, because we need them to talk about it. If they don't talk about it, they bottle up. And this is what's happening on the home front. They can't talk to their wife about it. They can't say, oh, look, we're involved in this problem and this is what happened and, we shot X amount of enemy or we're involved in this, because a lot of the stuff's still top secret.
Yeah.
And it's inbred into you. You can't talk about the secret under the Secrets Act or what's going on, but amongst other veterans they can. And that tends to get it off their chest, and they're good, And I always say to them, look, if you've got any problems at home, whatever, give me a ring. We had a day out on a boat the other day for veteran spouses. They called themselves Operation PTSD Support, which is a great thing. I think it's a wonderful thing they're doing. One of the ladies runs Legacy at Ipswich. I had a good chat with her. Phenomenal thing they're doing, and it's allowing the veterans to get it off their chest, and they can give them to the right people to talk to,
Yeah.
to the right support services.
Well, I've seen a pattern with some of the clients that I've had in the past, where they come out of the armed forces and then they look for something to be a part of.
Yep.
And sometimes, and this is like in some times gone by, because we don't see outlaw biker gangs are not very visible these days.
Yep.
Because of the laws that have been passed with regard to wearing colours and associating with criminals, which is a whole other topic itself.
Yep.
I can't see how they can outlaw a biker gang and not outlaw the Catholic Church, to tell you the truth. But
that's illegal. That's a legal criminal gang.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's a legal criminal gang. I think if you see three priests all at once on a corner, they should all be arrested.
Yes,
for 100%. Collusion. Yeah. So, but I've seen veterans come out and then they're looking for something to be a part of. And look, I've seen where they actually mention the church, where people have gone to the church and they've become part of a congregation, like a family, like something that they can belong to and offer some support. But in those times gone past, where the outlaw bike gangs were much more visible, there was quite a few veterans that drifted into that, and they became part of that world. And that world often had opportunity for illegal activity, and they would move down that path. And so you'd see veterans with PTSD that had gone down that path because it's an organisation where they could be a part of. Maybe it's a bit reflective of being in the army as well, with regard to a group having a common purpose.
Well, veterans and outlaw motorcycle gangs is pretty synonymous, because back in the day, Hell's Angels was formed by mostly veterans after World War II, looking for something to do. And I think that's now right. Veterans have their own group now, Veterans Motorcycle Club. Not an outlaw, but they are tied in some way to them. Whereas with myself, I'm a member of the Silent Service Motorcycle Club. Well, we're just a social club. I think the veterans are more just a social club. But those that do get tied up with the Outlaw Club, I think with their PTSD, they're a little bit vulnerable. So they get into this Outlaw Club, as you said, it's part of an organisation. Then the club recognises this guy's got skills we can utilise. And you learn a lot of skills that may not necessarily be good out in the civvy street when you're in the military, and they utilise those. And certainly with a lot of those army fellas and in the Navy, you've got those that go into SAS as well. I mean, those sort of blokes are they'll kill you 20 different ways before you even blink, you know.
Yeah.
That's part of the military training. So that's a skill, not to kill people, but to be able to render somebody pretty well hopeless.
To neutralise the enemy.
Neutralise the attack, yeah. So, yeah, that's the sort of thing that they get involved in. And, yeah, they've got, you know, they're free. They're on the bike. They've got no hassles, winds in their hair, and they've got no care in the world. You know, they've got blokes that are going to cover their back, hopefully.
Yeah.
You know, but unfortunately, it's not the right path for them to go down.
No, I've said that. You know, I suppose I see the clients that are in the worst amount of trouble and have perhaps made the worst decisions. So they're not representative of the group as a whole, but that's the contact that we have. That's where our interest primarily lies. And some of what I've seen is veterans with PTSD then being supported through the DVA, the gold card system, so that they've got some resources to seek treatment. There's also a hospital in Sydney, I believe, where veterans can go.
Yes.
I have a fellow that I know that attends there probably once a year. But it's a pretty difficult thing when you're a relatively young man and the DVA supporting you. You can't work. They were providing enough money, like they weren't. You know, it wasn't a poverty line sort of thing. There was a reasonable amount of money being paid to these people. Sometimes they'd be on medication, sometimes antipsychotic medication such as Seroquel to help them sleep.
Yep.
And then they've got all day and there's nothing to do. So that's a difficulty in itself. They need to find something to do, and then they slip into going down the pub every day, smoking cigarettes, smoking weed, taking drugs, mixing with other people that have got nothing to do, basically. And usually that's not a good outcome, and it can lead to being involved in the criminal justice system because, I don't know, it's a difficult thing. You know, what do you do? You're a great example of what to do. You're busy every day supporting fellow veterans, planning for the future, developing products so you can best raise money for the veterans. So you've got a full card and you've got a wonderful relationship with a very supportive partner. What sort of advice would you give to other veterans that are in that sort of boat?
I think, Mark, one of the problems for a veteran to get a gold card is quite an issue. And this is where DVA lets the veteran down, because they say it's their backlog, and there's, you know, even if they could clear the backlog up one a minute, it'd be probably still a couple of years. But
Wow.
I mean, I had to wait 6 years to get my gold card and jump through hoops. And it's even worse now, you know, and that's not right. And you've got people at the other end in DVA who aren't qualified psychs or whatever, they're just some public servant, who look at the reports that a psych writes, oh no, that's not good enough. Who are they? It should be a highly qualified psych at the other end going through those reports.
Yeah.
Not some public servant who makes a decision on somebody's life.
Yeah.
And, you know, and then when the veteran gives up and either becomes, you know, gets involved in the criminal world or in the drugs or commits suicide because he doesn't have that support, he feels, oh, I'm sick and tired of having to chase these reports up and do this, do that, go to this doctor, go to that doctor, goes to DVA, and then it's wait. You know, hurry up and wait. And that's how it works. And DVA, I think, quite often think to myself, they're a bit like work cover and all those. They don't care. The longer they hold you off, the longer you're either going to, A, give up, die, or go and kill yourself anyway, because then that's one less for them. And, you know, that's harsh, but that's the reality. And these guys, as you said, are sitting around, bored, oh, I'm waiting for this, waiting for that, what's going on, and then, you know, then it clicks in their head, oh, I might go and try this or do that. You know, John from next door comes over who might be a druggie or whatever and say, try some of this, mate, this will help you out, you know. And they're vulnerable at that point. And I see it all the time. You know, it's not, I don't think it's as huge as what I first thought it was, but it's certainly happening, and you certainly see it. So, you know, when it comes time for them to need help to get out of that. So, yes, it's not a nice thing. Not a nice thing.
Where can veterans turn to for help, mate?
Mate, best thing for a veteran is to get hold of Mates for Mates or Soldier On or their local RSL sub-branch. Look, I'm in the sub-branch at Currumbin RSL, and I've been involved in a few RSLs. I could not find a better RSL. We have a social meeting on a Wednesday. It's just a coffee meet with other veterans. A lot of them are Vietnam veterans. I'm sort of the odd one out because I wasn't in Afghanistan or Iraq or Vietnam, but I was involved in the Cold War. So, there's not a lot of submariners out there, unfortunately. But we get together and it's a great group. So, and there's always the fun and the banter between other veterans. Like you're in the Army or the Air Force, how we take the wrench out of them. Like, one of the common things is like the Navy navigates by the stars. The Army sleeps under 5 stars, under all the stars. Where's the Air Force go? They sleep in 5-star hotels, So like it's just a fun thing,
Yeah.
A banner, but they're a good bunch of blokes, and they're very, very supportive of each other, and they've got good civilian staff there that can really support you too. And then they've got the Veteran Support Centre, which is right next to Currumbin RSL. A lady who does a lot of the welfare side of that is phenomenal. She's ex-Army. Her husband runs his own charity, Red 6, which is a great thing for veterans. So, there's plenty of support, but they got to find it. And quite often, the veteran comes out without anybody telling him where to go.
Yeah.
You can go and see these people. Like the forces, when you pay off, they should give you a little pack with a list of all the support services you can go to if you're having problems. They don't do that.
That seems like a very common sense approach.
Well, we think it is, but we're talking, a lot of public servants and stuff who don't think the way we think, and that'll be too hard,
Yeah, I've found that in my experience with community service organisations is that there are a lot of them out there, but you wouldn't know half of them, and they're not closely connected and working with each other. And you can often go to these organisations and there'll be several people working, and there's not a client in sight. There's nothing actually happening within the organisation, and the organisation's totally foreign to you. So it's it's not as visible or accessible as it should be. That's for sure.
If I can say, Mark, I think with veterans, if those that are listening to this podcast and in this area or in Queensland, if they want to come out sailing, they can either be in touch with Currumbin RSL and speak to them. We'll put them in the right contact with people, or call me, or get in touch on our Facebook page, Sailing Mystic for Veterans, and EMS. And that the same applies to first responders as well, because I've been there with them as well. So,
what are you doing at the moment? What have you got on the cards, mate? I know you've had a couple of health issues you've dealt with. You're looking really well now. Yeah. Lucy's looking well. You look like you're ready for another adventure. What's happening?
Always adventures, mate. We're trying to buy another boat.
Yeah, you were telling me about that. How's that going?
Don't take me wrong, Mystic is a good vessel, strong vessel.
Yeah.
But we've sort of basically outgrown it. It's a 42-footer. We want to step up into a 55-footer, and we're going to try and plan some overnight adventures with other veterans and take them up to Whitsundays and maybe up the islands further north. These are things we've got in plan, and what we'll do is we'll travel the East Coast and drop into different towns and drop veterans off, pick up other veterans, whatever, and take them out overnight or whatever, and if they want to experience that sort of thing. And and plus we'll do our day sails as well. Our next day sail's out on the Saturday the 3rd of June. Don't normally like to go out into the Broadwater on a weekend because, as you know, you get all the rabbits out there.
Yeah, that's right.
all those.
The jet skis.
Oh, not so much. Some of the jet skis are bad, but I love jet skis.
My son's called the jet skis the cyclists of the ocean.
Yeah, there was a couple of names I've heard of them, but a lot of these people in big power boats who have got the money to buy them and no idea how to drive them. So
I know. And
they come past you with the thing sitting on the bog, like the back of the boat right down. And they're creating tsunamis coming off the side of them, off the wake. Yeah. And, side onto any vessel, it's going to roll like anything, and which is not comfortable for our passengers, or, but that's the way it is. I love jet skis. Like Bundy's ridden a jet ski with me from Phillip Island to Cairns back in 2008.
Wow.
So, we've been there and done all that, and Lucy's not keen on jet skis, but I've got to get her on the back of one and take her for a good squirt. I'm sure she'll like it. But and like the mob who run jet skis here, the Jet Ski Association here, I think the president is a woman, Mandy Brown, very, very good at what she does. And they've lent me a jet ski in the past to do charity rides with my dog at the time, with Bundy. But there's so many things veterans could go and do and get involved. Like sub-branches and stuff like that or RSLs in general, or Mates for Mates or Soldier On, they have events that veterans can go to keep them occupied. And if they hunt around, they could probably do it 5 days a week, different events. And a lot of these events won't cost the veteran anything.
Yeah.
So they've got to, explore that. So, and especially here on the Gold Coast, there's so many things to do. Currumbin Wildlife Sanctuary runs a program for veterans where they can go every Tuesday and learn a bit about wildlife, and especially in their habitat and stuff like that, and how it all works. That's a good thing,
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Tex, thanks, mate.
Thanks, Mark, for having me.
That was bloody terrific. Thank you very much for listening to another episode of Crime Scene Gold Coast with Guardian Criminal Law. We're enjoying bringing you these podcasts on a weekly basis, and we look forward to bringing you many more. We've got a Patreon page where you can subscribe. That'll assist us in bringing you future episodes, and also any money raised through that goes towards a youth help program that we're running. We look forward to your company for many months to come. Thank you.